non-voters really, got Hitler elected, right? So it's really important that we use this right that we have. A lot of countries don't have a full right like that. And unfortunately, it's being sabotaged in a lot of ways. But let's do what we can to get everybody's vote out. If we can drive somebody, or I'm going to get my write-in. I'm going to write in, I'm going to email for my write-in vote, and then I'm going to drop it off because I don't want anything to stop that from going through, So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, we're in a very strange time in so many ways.
Yeah, truly.
I'm glad to hear you're negotiating. That means something's going on, right?
No, yes, everything sort of exploded at the same time. Everybody, hi. Good evening.
Hello.
Again, sorry to leave you hanging out, but I'm sure Michael had a few wonderful things to tell you in the meantime.
I was vamping, totally vamping.
And then there was the time I went. Anyway, but yeah, production has exploded in Vancouver and in Toronto, all over Canada. And it's started in Europe, and a lot of people are starting up here, and it's sort of opening up the door. I think a lot of productions were trying to wait to see how these protocols worked before they opened up. But now we're casting, we're casting a lot of stuff, mostly the shows that are shooting in Toronto and Vancouver, but
right.
We're starting, we're shooting, so.
Well, that's encouraging, because it feels like, I was just asking this great group of people if anyone's been auditioning, and I mean, I judge it a little bit, not so much by whether I'm auditioning, but if I'm getting coaching clients, and there's been a little bit uptick in that.
Right.
So welcome, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
I think everyone's name is up there. The only one who's misrepresented is Cynthia Lermond, is Chris Frost. That's I don't know what that's his alias.
You never know.
So. Today, you don't know. I don't even know what Chris's pronoun is, but
you just got to be, sensitive to everyone's way of presenting, as they say. So thank you guys all for coming. I really, when Michael asked me, one of the things that I'm always happy to do is to demystify the process in any way that I possibly can, and to, give you hints if you need on self-taping, although I think people are getting it down pretty well, to answer any questions about process or industry that I can. But, to just let you know also that, I came out of the theater. I started as an actress and soon found that that was not my passion. I would be on stage going, don't you think the hot spot should be a little further upstage? I was directing, and my director didn't appreciate it. She said, you do your job, I'll do mine. So I said, then I want her job. So that's what I started doing. That's what I did in New York. I worked at the Public Theater, not as a director, not as a stage manager. I was an equity stage manager for a long time. And, but I directed a lot of plays myself in New York and here. When I came here, there's such a thriving theater scene here, which is why it's so sad that on both coasts, the theater is shut down right now. But everyone's making the best of it that they can by the Zoom stuff, but it doesn't quite, I mean, you get used to it, but it's not the same charge, I find, in a certain way. There's something about a live performance. So, coming out here, I came out here a long time ago, before most of you were born. And I guess, Michael, I must have met you right around that time in the late 70s, early 80s. When did you come out here?
I came out in 82.
Yeah, so I think I must have met you pretty soon after that.
Yeah.
I think we had some mutual people that we knew. So, but, this is to say that if this is your chosen field, being in the entertainment business, or being in the art business, being an artist, then it takes work. It's not something that it's not just like, okay, I'm going to do that. It's a gift that you have to nurture, and that it's really important to continue to work on, not just from the outside in, but from the inside out as well. A lot of us have things that can block us. I know for myself, just doing the work that I was doing, I would come into a meeting and sort of say, well, I better put on my experienced casting director, experienced, excellent casting director mask. And then I was going, wait a minute, I am an experienced casting director. I was still feeling like I had to present myself for what I thought other people were looking for. And I think that this is something that hits actors a lot, because you don't know what they're looking for, so you're trying to please. You're trying to fill what you think that they're looking for. All you can really do is get the most information that you can about the part and the tone, and then make some choices. And if the casting director or the director asks you to make a change, that you're flexible enough to be able to do that. Because when they're asking you to do that, it's not because they think what you just did was crap. It's because what they think that you just did gives them an idea that you might be able to do this role. So they want to play with it a little bit. You know, the worst thing that can happen is that all we get is exactly what you did in the audition. We want to see how you grow. Getting the job, as I'm sure everyone has told you, it's different than doing the job. When you start doing the job, then you start building on all the different elements and colors and mixes. So you come in with the taste, so that they can know who you are, as not only as an actor, but as a person, in terms of how prepared you are, how you're not talking yourself out of a job by saying, well, my cat was really sick and then I had to, go to the vet and then my car got crashed. And, you need to find a way to put that energy in so that it pushes your performance, that it doesn't hinder you. I talk a lot about the fear that paralyzes you and the fear that pushes you forward. I think a lot of times when stakes are high, like it's a series or it's a role that you really want, fear can come into the equation. So it's really, it really has the same feeling in your stomach as excitement in a way, right? It has that kind of feel. So if you can begin to transmute it, I guess, it can push you forward. It gives you it gives you some energy to come into the room with. What I find with actors coming in for me is that the people that I remember are not necessarily the people who got the job. What I remember are the people who made contact with me. A lot of times, I used to read with people all the time. I was the reader, because I like to be able to see how we connect. Are you looking at me? Are you listening to me? Are you making the scene about my character and not yours? And so many times these become the criticisms after someone has left. It's like they weren't present. They were just waiting for me to finish talking. There was no connection. So a lot of times what will happen is that if you've made a connection with me, because that's more important actually in a way than getting the job, it's really like going in there and being as present. You guys have spoken about this a million times, about how present you can be. I don't know, I haven't watched Michael's classes, so I'm hoping I'm not counter teaching to some of the things you're talking about. Am I?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right. I figured it. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, because you mentioned talking about coming into the room.
Yes.
And I don't believe there's any more coming into the room for a while.
That's true.
And the whole concept of making a personal connection,
right,
which was always something that as an actor, and I'm sure as a casting director as well, you can just, you can feel it. You know when that connection is made.
Right.
And so without the human element of face-to-face interaction, it becomes a different thing. I mean, I can only, and by the way, April, everything you're saying is absolutely in concert with stuff I talk about. The thing I don't do, and this is where maybe you can be very helpful, I don't do like an audition class, because I kind of think that's like teaching people how to take the SAT.
Right.
You learn how to take the SAT, but that doesn't mean you know anything. So I generally work on that on a one-on-one coaching basis. But
right.
Like I'll speak only to myself, because I'm becoming an outlier because I'm so freaking old. And I don't want, like me personally, I don't want to do all this technical stuff. I do it if I have to, but I don't want to because I feel like I'm 100 years old.
Right.
So, but I know that that is the reality for everybody else.
You know, adapt or die. I mean,
Yeah,
really, that
yeah,
is kind of the thing, you know, and that means not only knowing the tech. The tech is important, but what's most important is how you make the camera your partner and how you're able to make that connection. You know, it's just like when you're doing exercises in class or whatever else. It's like you have to personalize it in a way, no matter who you're working with. Sometimes your scene partner's a dud, and that doesn't mean that you don't do the best that you can do. Someone
no,
unmuted.
that's me.
Okay, so your phone. So, you know, what I've discovered is that, and maybe it is with actors who are not used to having to tape. I know a lot of my friends who are, you know, would come into the quote unquote older category, are not happy with this. It makes them very uncomfortable. But the truth of it is that we can still learn a lot. And if it's callbacks, then we do a Zoom with the director and the producers,
Right.
so that you're getting personal direction from the director. And this is whether it's TV or film. It's going to be like this for a while.
Oh, yes.
So for me, and this is how I see it, when you're doing the work that helps you connect to what your blocks are, either in your body, your voice, or your soul, your psyche, then when you come into the room, you're not carrying those blocks with you. You get to use them. They don't have to use you. You know, and what I mean by that is like whether it's fear or, you know, my mom always said, what do you think, who do you think you are? You're going to be an actor. You know, you're not pretty enough. You can't sing, you can't move, you're this, you're that, whatever. And we absorb that, you know, we absorb those feelings, or I'm too old, you know, and it's the same kind of thing. We use that and it uses us, as opposed to sort of going, what the hell? You know, let me give it my best shot. Let me connect the best I can. Let me get centered before I go on tape. Let me take multiple takes so that I feel more comfortable with the material. And by the way, you can send us more than one take when you do a tape. Sometimes it's great to see what the process has been a little bit, and it may give us another look at it. But I really think the important thing is to, yes, know what we need to be able to see you. We need to be able to hear you. I have this little Loom cube that I'm using now, which just plugs into my computer, which is great. And you can make it softer toned or harsher toned, I mean, or brighter toned. And it just lights up the whole area. You know, I mean, you can see me fine, right, everybody?
Yeah, you look
You see me
great.
good? Now, if I was doing, you know, if I was doing a tape, I probably would have some kind of backdrop. But if I don't, I don't. You do the best you can do, and you try to make it as uncluttered as possible with the best light, and then forget it. Get your setup together. Know that your tech is good, test it out, make sure I can hear you, make sure I can see you. Don't have the computer like this. Don't have the computer like this, you know, have it so that it's up on a block so that it's appropriate so I can see your face. Do a full body shot so I can see what your physicality is. But most important is the work. And it's always going to be the work. So yeah, we have to adapt to what that feels like. And what it ends up being on camera. And the more that you do it, the more used to it you'll get, the more that will become. It's just like when you're shooting in a movie and you don't have an actor reading across from you while you're doing your lines, you know, when they're doing the master. It's almost the same kind of thing. You know, you have to still be in the moment of what's happening in the scene, of who that person is, of how you're going to serve that person in some way, you know, whether it's tearing them down or whatever, you know, but it's also about communicating with them. And that's always going to be the same. That's always what acting is going to be about, right? Acting is reacting, so.
One of my colleagues I have two colleagues at the studio who work with me. One is Kelsey Olson. Kelsey, raise your hand. There she is. And the other is John Redlinger, who is not on the call tonight. And he said something, I had him, I was teaching a bit at USC, and he came in, and one of the things he said, and it just sort of rolled off his tongue, but I went, that's really an important thing. He said, put a camera in your life every day. Mm. He said, you know, like if you're just rehearsing something, set up your iPhone at the table, right, and just do it. Just so, you know, I'm as I say this, I'm speaking to myself as well. I find it a challenge. You know, when it happens, I do it, obviously.
No, of course. I mean, but you become more proficient at it, just like anything else. Sure. You know, I mean, sure, the more you audition, the better at auditioning you get, the more that you're working with the camera. And that's not to say, you know, some people don't come across on camera. They haven't learned how to make that connection. I mean, I've been watching tapes all week. We've seen over 200 actors on tape, and actors who I know very well, who are great actors, just got dead in the eyes. There was no connection. So I call them and I say, I'm going to have you do it again. And you know, I love you, because these are actors that I've always wanted, you know, I always try to work with. And I just, you know, sort of get them grounded into what is actually going on there. You know, what's actually happening in the scene, and you know what you're trying to get across in some ways. Not giving line readings or anything, but just to give them a little insight into, because you know they get sides. You get sides when you do auditions, right?
Right. Yes.
So you don't always have a script. Sometimes the sides aren't even from the script with a lot of films and things these days. So you just got to do the best that you can do and get the tone as best you can, and then, you know, it's up to the casting gods, I guess. So.
I always say, and then I want to open it up to some questions, but increasing, because I come from a similar background. I spent a lot of time in the theater, and making that pivot to screen was difficult at first. And then I got to really like it. But increasingly today, assuming that you're not...
And he's very good, by the way, just in case you haven't seen him. But anyway, go ahead.
I did not pay you to say that. Increasingly today, because I will go and do a casting session, let's say, and this is back in the day when you went into rooms, which wasn't that long ago.
No.
And I would see 8 or 10 people who are all people I know, people in the same type, same age.
Right.
But any one of these people could do this. They're all great. They're all very, very good. So it comes down to, and if I'm wrong about this, just tell me, but assuming that everyone's talented enough, everyone's met the talent threshold, comes down to worlds and faces. Like there's a world, and you either fit in that world or not. NCIS is a world. Downton Abbey is a world.
Right.
The Office is a world. Where do you fit? That's the commoditized version of you. The artistic, what I think everyone who knows, who's studied with me, is we work on the art of acting, but since we're not really doing traditional scene work anymore, we're doing very innovative Zoom work, I guess. And it's been kind of cool. It's been a real learning experience, but you know, you're working in close-up. In the Zoom, you're working in close-up all the time. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, I think I've met some of the people in your class already, right? Hi.
You may have.
I recognize a few of the folks there anyway. Yeah, I know, I totally agree with you with that. I have a sort of different perception of what typing is, because I think, you know, you have to know what your gifts are. And I think that's what that rather than, you know, sort of locking yourself into one little niche sometimes. But I won't say that that's not what's happening, but I think, you know, if you focus on your gifts as opposed to what you don't think you have, then you can become a lot of different things. I mean, Woody Allen would never have been a leading man if he hadn't just completely embraced who he was. You know, Adam Sandler became leading man against all these very beautiful women, and no one would normally say that Adam Sandler is a handsome leading guy, you know, but Adam Sandler totally embraces who he is. And so what I'm saying with that is, what makes it different for each person is that we are all unique. We each have different experiences in our lives. We have a different history. We have a different culture sometimes. We have a different experience of what life has been. And that's what you bring into the room with you. You know, you bring in that uniqueness. And so if it's right, as you said, you'll get the part.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great though is that sometimes it's not that you got the part, but that you made the connection to the casting director or the producer or the director who's in the room. I can't tell you how many times I have pulled people from other audition sessions that I've had to bring them in for a movie or to bring them in for a television show, because they just came into the room and their energy just completely enveloped us. We weren't thinking about the phone. We weren't thinking about the budget. We were just watching them, because when they came in, they were centered, they were focused, and they were ready to do the work. You know, that's why about preparation and all that thing, it's important. If you're not, now you don't have to worry about sitting out in the waiting room with people, but that even before you go on tape, if you want to do some trial runs so you get warmed up, you know, so that, you know how when you're rehearsing a play, how the more often you read the script and you start playing with other people, all of a sudden you go, oh, that's what that means.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, and so in a way it can be the same kind of process, that you play with it, not the way that you think it's supposed to be, but to meet what you know is the tone of the piece. Like I'm working on a piece right now called Lock and Key. Lock and Key is a graphic novel that's been made into a series, high fantasy, but we're playing it as real as we possibly can, considering that people are, you know, using a key to go, you know, to another world and demons and things like that. But we're not playing it high dudgeon, you know, we're not playing it broad. We're playing it very real, because then the special effects and all the fantasy and horror become more effective. Now, you know, you just have to know the show. If you're going in for Riverdale, it's going to be different than if you're going in for NCIS. It's important to know what the show is. If it's a pilot, it's important to know what the material is and where they're going with it, if you can get that information. And that's your right, is to ask about that. So that you know what people are looking for in a certain way, but also so that you can add it to your interpretation, you know, to have it.
The thing you're speaking of really resonates with me, because the whole idea of bringing yourself to it. I mean, that's now almost a cliche, let's say. But when I know when I first came here, and I've told this story, and some of my folks might roll their eyes if they've heard it, but the first job I did, I was horrible. I watched it and I went, oh my God, I suck at this. I'm not good at this. This is a whole other thing.
Right.
And so I was lucky enough to be around some great people who I learned from just by being around them, specifically Jack Warden. I did a few things.
Oh my God.
Learned a lot from Jack, but also and that's sort of the basis of, I'm not plugging my book, but it is the basis of my book, which is it's called The Authentic Actor, The Art and Business of Being Yourself.
Yes.
And when I did, when I started teaching, there was a woman who some of you might know, who was in my class, who wasn't really an actor. She was more of a writer, but she just wanted to do it. And she had a ebullient personality, and she was fun, and she was great. She was so great. She had no training at all, but she had an active, wonderful imagination. And I finally said to her after a few times, I said, I'm just curious how you're doing this, how you're arriving at these very interesting, completely singular performances. And she said, well, I just pretend that what's happening is happening to me.
Right.
And I went, okay, you can go home. That's the end.
But you don't need Juilliard for that.
That's
you
right.
know?
Because for film and TV, it's a personal identity art form, frankly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, I feel so strongly that you're so right. And so am I. So we're wonderful, because
Aren't we great? We're so
great.
great. And you know, I mean, here's the thing: is one of the things that can happen, and I think is a real bugaboo, if you will, if I can use an ancient expression, is when we compare ourselves to other people. And that's very easy to do. My buddy got this role. How come I didn't get up for it? How come I didn't get it? Or, well, she's doing good. I can't even, that is death.
Death.
And it's anathema to your creativity. Comparing yourself, judging yourself, it doesn't do you any good. When you're talking about this woman in your class, what happened was no judgment.
Exactly.
And so if you're not judging, then you're just being. And that's what we're talking about, right?
But what you're saying, this is all, I said this to John Redlinger, who's not here tonight, when he started teaching for me. I said, the acting is easy. You'll find you're in the mental health business as well. And so it is, actors keep score. We all keep score. And I said, you got to not keep score, because there's always going to be somebody doing better than you. There's always going to be somebody who got that part who you maybe think isn't up to it. And that's just the way it is. I always felt if somebody I knew got a break, I thought, oh, that's great, because that means I could get that.
Right. Well, it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
No, I was just going to say, it's like you could insert any aspect of the entertainment industry into this joke, but it's like, how many actors does it take to screw in a light bulb? One, but I could have done it better. So that's kind of, that's kind of the thing. I'm a stage director. So like, I'll watch a play, I'll go, oh, the performances were okay, but I think the director really dropped the ball on that one, so it happens no matter where you are. And by the way, it happens with casting directors too. How come I'm not getting the special projects? How come I've been working, as I said, for most, more longer than most of you have been alive. So, but that's a great thing that I can keep working and I can keep creating and I can keep seeing it hopefully from another light, so that I'm not always judging what I'm doing. It used to, when I was a younger casting director, it used to eat me up alive. I used to stress so much about they don't want to hire me, or they're going to fire me, or I'm not getting the good projects, or it was horrible. And we do this to ourselves. Oftentimes the way we speak to ourselves is in a way that we would never speak to anyone that we love. Ever. And so, it's like, treat yourself like you're somebody you love. treat your body like you're somebody you love, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it's getting you through now, right? I mean, just it's really important. That's why when you talk about that woman, it's like a childlike way of approaching it. And children don't judge what they do. They just go to something else and do it again. It's like, it's never, they don't stop and say, oh, I didn't throw that ball very well, unless their parents are sort of imposing that on them. And that's when it starts. But,
yes.
But they don't, they play. And it should be fun, right? I mean, why become an actor if you love it, enjoy it? Yeah.
Let me throw that ball again. I can do it better. Right?
Yeah, wait, Daddy. I can get it this time. Anyway.
I have some questions, but actually I want to really open it up. Sure. The one thing I'll talk about, because so many talented people on this thread. I mean, I still feel that theater training is the foundational skill, because it encourages you to run the marathon, not the 50-yard dash. It encourages you to really delve into the text. It encourages teamwork. To me, it's just the foundational skill. Then you have to, and when you do it professionally, as I did, and you're doing 8 shows a week, it's like, it gets to be a different animal, kind of. It gets to be like assembly line work. But I still feel that's important. And so when we were doing scene work, when we were doing that in person, we really worked on long, complex stuff, because I felt it was, you can run the 5-page format as the 50-yard dash. I'm trying to train people to run the mile or the 5-mile. So anyway, that's not a really question. It's just
so you have 6-hour classes?
No. Not anymore. And no, we never, those kind of classes are insane. But I want to I have questions, but I want to open it up to this wonderful group of people. And seeing as though you don't have to put it in the chat, just sort of raise your finger and you're good to go.
No questions.
No fingers.
Take advantage of this. Okay.
You bet.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to ask, what was your most memorable experience when an actor walked into the audition room and you knew right away that they were the one? Like the most memorable experience?
Wow. Well, actually, I've had quite a few of those. Not as often as one might think. Someone comes in and they just have stars around their, their heads. One was actually on tape. The young woman who on Bates Motel, Olivia, we saw she hadn't really done very much. She put herself on tape from Manchester, and as soon as we knew her, we said, "This is Emma. This is the woman." We just knew, because there's a certain, we've been working with the text, we've been working with the writers. We have a sense of what the tone and color. I always think of it as like painting a picture, like what color is going to go in here, what texture is going to go in there, and so that's happened. I remember I was casting an independent film, budget being, I think it was $250,000, obviously very early in my career. And this actor, I was working at Zoetrope at the time, and this was after Zoetrope, so it was non-union. So I went into their non-union files and I found this picture of this guy leaning up against a tree, and I'm not a big fan of outdoor shots personally, but there was something about this guy. It was in his eyes and it was in his face. And I called him in. He took a long time getting back to me because he thought I was a creditor. He was a stage manager at Sunset Gower. And so it was very hard pinning him down. And he came in for this film. And the minute he came in, the director and the writer and I just went, if this guy can act, he's the guy. Because he had the energy, he had the personality, and that was Kevin Costner. So one thing kind of led to another, but he was the lead in that film. And we were shooting in Reno, and we did dailies at one of the local theaters every Sunday morning. And the popcorn ladies would be peeking in the window to watch the dailies whenever Kevin was on. So we knew that we had gotten our guy, and it happens like that sometimes. When we were casting, when Alyssa Weisberg and I were casting this last Star Trek, and Sofia Boutella came in, it was like Alyssa started crying. I just went, because we had been, and she was one of the first week of people that we were looking at, and we just went, that's it, she's the girl. And it was so clear, just who she was, and her, and energetically and everything else, she was the one. And sometimes it happens like that, and just to talk about for a second about the theater training thing, I love the idea of learning how to, analyze a script and do those kind of things too. But it also means nurturing your natural gifts as well. And that's what you're teaching, that's what your teacher should be helping you do, is to be drawing that out. And I'm assuming that since you're all still here, that's what Michael does. It's a way of uncovering for yourself what you may not have honored in a way, and you do that through classwork, and you do that through reading. People say to me, "Oh, really? That's great. Isn't she the greatest? I just adore her. What a heart." Rachel just said that she knows Sophia. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes we know Yvette, sometimes it takes us a long time. Sometimes we know, but the producers and the director don't. So it might take us a little bit longer, and then they'll come back to that person again. I mean, how many times I have said with my colleagues, if they would just let me cast it, that would be so great. But we don't make the last decision. We have to encourage, urge, and, push people into a direction. So. Good question. Thank you.
Venk, you had your hand up.
Hey, April. My name is Venk. I know it says Venkatesh there, but you can call me Venk. My question is, you're speaking along the lines of, you were just kind of talking about this, and I wondered if you could speak a little bit about this idea of a star, or the qualities of what that is, and not necessarily that that's something that we should aim to be, or again that comparison thing, but if you were to say charisma would be a word perhaps that would define someone who you think has that quality, how would you define that? And then how would you recommend that we could build that quality within ourselves? You talk about gifts, unblocking the blocks so that we can use them instead of them using us, how would
Right,
you
right.
recommend, like, on a day-to-day basis, I guess?
So here's the thing, Venk, that when the people, now, you know, let's say you're at a party, right? And who are the people that you're most interested in talking to? Who are the people that are most interesting to you? It's the people who are confident. It's the people who seem to be comfortable in their own skin. The ones who don't have fear asking questions, that there's an openness to them, there's an accessibility about them. We use that word a lot, that someone was very accessible. And the only way you do that is through your inward journey. I mean, you have to have the craft, but it really is about working on yourself and taking a look at those things that, you know, then keep you from being as big a person as you can be. And those are your gifts too. To know that your soft heart is part of your gift. You know, to know that your, you know, whatever damage you may have had as a child, that can be your gift too. And not just something that diminishes you and keeps you down. It's something that taught you how to survive, you know? And so that's what I would say. What makes a star, it's hard to pinpoint. But I think that what I believe is that the more that you clear your stuff, the more oxygen you have. The more oxygen you have, the more accessible you are, you know? You know, it opens you up. And I want to be able to see into you in a way. And that's why actors have to be so vulnerable and yet discerning at the same time. You know, you just don't do that for everyone. You do it for the people who are going to be supportive of you. You do it with the people who want to see you be as big as you can, not the ones who want to put you down or tear you down. And then you can make peace with those other people. I mean, if they're related to you and you have to, you know, you just make peace with them because their vision of you doesn't have to be your vision of you, you know, and that's really an important thing.
It's so well said. That's just so beautifully said. I really appreciate that. I was gonna just add to that, if I may. When I have a new student, someone I don't know, I always ask them to bring in something they're really good at.
Mm-hmm.
Show me something that you think you're good at, that you've succeeded with. And then bring in another thing called, this is what I know. I want to know what you know. I know that we're right about anything. I don't need to know deepest, darkest secrets. I don't need to know anything about
Right.
that. How do you like your coffee? How do you feel about your dog? How about your traffic? How about your parents? Et cetera, et cetera. So if I see the artist and if I see the worldview, the point of view, that and that usually trumps, pardon that word, didn't mean to say that, that usually dominates the, often point of view dominates the artistry, you know, as you know. So it's, yeah, it's so, and what you said about just basically leading an exam in life and being open to all of yourself is, if you can bring that into performance. And that was always my difficulty in the theater, because you can hide behind certain artifice and you can't do that on the camera. So I love that. Other questions? I know there are more. Christine.
Venk, did that answer your question though, Venkatesh?
Yes, absolutely. I feel like now I can become a full-fledged movie star.
Yeah,
All
Ready
right.
to go.
I see the
I'm
charisma
accessible
right
now, baby.
All
I'm
right,
accessible. No, I'm kidding. No, but thank you. That's great.
The
Yeah. Sorry.
charisma is just popping off the screen.
Oh, boy.
Christine in Minneapolis.
And
Or
then Jennifer.
Juan.
Hi, I had a question. For actors who aren't on a series or are just getting started in the business or are younger in their careers, are there things that you feel can put them on your radar at your level, or things that definitely take them off your radar when you meet someone and you say, oh, that person's not ready to be in this room yet, or it's just not time for them to be at this level yet?
It's a little different because now I can't see your work like on stage and that sort of thing. I can only, oh, excuse me. I have a little friend here who wants to join the class.
Oh, good.
This is Rosie. Hi, Rosie. Hello, sweetie. Okay. So let's see. Yes, here's something that's really important. and this goes back to what we were talking about what kind of person you are. And if you have been in the waiting room and you've been pissy or harassing my assistant or basically being just a jerk, then if I have a choice between 3 actors who are really good, guess who I'm going to pick? Not you. Because I don't want someone on my set who's a jerk. There's another thing that's really important too, and this is something that it isn't necessarily traditional, but it's something that I think is really important, is to educate yourself. When people are reading a script and they pronounce a word or a name wrong, to me it shows me that they didn't do their homework. I mean, there was just to give you an example, we were casting something and the line was, well, this isn't something from a Bronte novel. So if they said Bront instead of Bronte, well, that was it. Thank you, nice to meet you, because I like to work with smart people. And so if someone asks me what you can do to be a wonderful actor, I say, have a really full life. Because you're an artist, those are the things that inspire you. It's what books have you read? What cultures have you experienced? What languages do you speak? So in terms of being prepared, it means if you have an opportunity to go in there, Juan, and you get an opportunity, even if you're a young actor, to do that, if you've done your homework, and even though you're nervous, I'm not gonna like X you out forever if your audition wasn't brilliant. I'm gonna see someone who's new. I can tell by your resume, I can tell how you are in the room. What I'll probably do is make you stop and breathe, because that's what I do because I can watch people's heads sort of separate from their bodies. There's no integration. They sort of go, and then they go up in the lines, but if you're nervous, you're nervous. What can you do? But find ways to prep for yourself before you go in, if you get that opportunity. And if you don't get that one, then it's something to learn from. It's an opportunity to see, what could I have done better? What could I have done that would have made me feel more comfortable? What could I have done to have the lines, to have the character more cut out and etched out? So it's just everything that you do in life. I mean, we're given a lot of gurus, if you will, in our lives. And when I say that, I don't mean like the popular notion of what a guru is. It's like, a cult leader. It can be the guy who said good morning to you this morning. Everyone is put here for our enlightenment. So someone can say something to you that may seem like a slam, and then you sort of go, maybe if I hadn't reacted that way, I wouldn't be so upset right now. I try to catch myself when I find myself getting charged up over certain situations to say, okay, what's this really about? Why am I so hooked? Why am I so hooked right now? What button did it punch for me? Because the reality is that there's no problem, but I'm making the problem. So if you have the opportunity to go in, Juan, you'll just do the best that you can do. And if you get the opportunity to go in, that's a great thing. What a great, way to learn how to do it for yourself. So that the fear of it goes away, so that the anticipation of it diminishes in terms of what stops you. But it's really how you begin to anticipate, oh good, I'm going in for an audition, as opposed to, oh my God, I got to prepare for. So it's just a different way of looking at it. But these are all things, the idea of being a good human being is really important. And I really believe in, when I mention an actor to someone and they have no idea who I'm talking about, yes, partly it can be about age, because obviously, I have a different set of references than you might. But if this is someone who's a well-known Shakespearean actor, for example, if you don't know who Laurence Olivier is, or you don't know, Meryl Streep or whatever it happens to be, then I'm sort of going, well, if you're not interested in this business, then why are you in this business? Look, acting draws a lot of people in for a lot of different reasons. Some of us just have never felt like we had a voice. So we become actors so that we can have a voice, so that we can say some things, or we need the approval, or we need to feel loved. There's a lot of different reasons why people become actors. Eventually, as you begin to mature and go through these different things in your life, you begin to go in for the art of it and for the love of being able to communicate a feeling or an emotion to someone else. you know, and that's what the really beautiful part of it is, because so many people are closed down in the world. So when you can do a play, or you can do a movie, or you can do a role that gives them a voice by watching you, I mean, how brilliant is that, right? What a great service that is. Anyway, so does that answer your question, Juan? Is that helpful? Okay, great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
Rachel, I'll get to Cameron, you next.
Thank you. Hi, April. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, my pleasure.
Oh, my lights just went out. Just to kind of piggyback off of what you just said in terms of being of service and being an artist who's giving, you know, I have a dance background, and part of why I got into acting was to make people feel something with my words, my thoughts, emotions, all of that. So I've been studying and in the craft, and I just wanted to know if you have any advice and insight in terms of how we can think of things differently, not just from the craft, but from a business standpoint as well, because it is a two-parter. And you know, I know that we want to feel as though our reps are handling that, but I think as actors, we have to be able to dive into the craft, but also understand that it's a business, and there's, you know, certain moves and strategies and things that we just need to be smart about.
Absolutely. I totally get it. I mean, the business of show business is very important, and you've got to be savvy to it. You're not a babe in the woods. If you're deciding to go into this, it's a very competitive field. Like I would, you know, when I go into a class and there's, you know, 40 people in the class, maybe a 10th of those people or an 1/8 of those people are going to become regular working actors. And that's not to discourage you, but that's to say that it's a long term, it's a long race, you know, and so it doesn't always mean that it comes right away. But you have to be in relationship with your representatives if you're lucky enough to have them. Not everybody does. And there's just one thing I wanted to correct, because I may have said this too, is that we can't make anybody feel anything. All we can do is be as genuine as we can in our expression of it, and hope that it reaches them in some way, you know, because we don't have that control. We don't have that power, not even over our own lives most of the time. So I just wanted to adjust that a little bit, because I may have said that also. But in terms of the business, you do have to be smart. You have to read the trades. You have to know what the shows are. If there's something that's casting, and you have read about it, and it seems like something that could be in your wheelhouse, contact your rep. You know, they might say, you know, let me do my job, but you have to, if you can be in relationship with them, then it won't come as an indictment of them. Do you know what I mean? It won't be saying, why didn't you send me out there? Just say, you know, I heard about this role. I think I could be right for it. And they might say, I've already submitted you. You know, the other thing that you can do, since we can't go to the theater right now, everyone has cameras. We all have cameras. Half the stuff I'm watching now is all stuff that's been YouTube movies and things like that, that people have created with other people in Zoom. I judge the Student Academy Awards every year. And this year, a lot of people's enrollment came late. So you have a couple of people who are doing Zoom movies. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, but it's about learning how to use media. And that's what, you know, there's so many different kinds of auditions. There's a comedy audition, there's a drama audition, there's a movie audition, there's a television audition, there's a streaming audition, which is going to be different than a broadcast audition. So it's to begin to get familiar with all those things and really suss out all of that. And in terms of the business, also knowing what you can ask for, what's right and fair. Other actors are your best resource. And to maybe create an actors group where people actually, or through your class, which is a great way to do that, where it becomes a community. Because the best way that you're going to be able to survive in the business is if you have a community. So that when something doesn't go the way you wanted it to, you have some place to go and call. Or say, hey, you know, I know that you went up for something like this at Netflix. Did they just tell you that they're not going to pay you for, you know, the in-between days or whatever it happens to be? So, and not to be afraid to ask about that stuff. So in terms of getting an agent, I can't tell you how to do that. These days, it's going to be a little tougher because people can't see you, but you can create your own content. It's about target marketing, Rachel. You know, I mean, you don't want to just send out a million emails to a bunch of casting directors. It's inappropriate, it's annoying, and most of the time will just get deleted. But if there's something that you're specifically right for, like you say, you were a dancer, and I'm looking for someone who can move, and it's a show about ballerinas, or it's a show about, you know, something like that, well, then that would be appropriate for you to remind your agent that that's your background. We have to know what our product is as well as the art. The art has to support it. You can't just be a beautiful person and you know, beautiful looking person and think that you're going to have a great career. Even, you know, you look at Richard Chamberlain, he went back, you know, you don't know who Richard Chamberlain is, but anyway, he was someone who was, you know, playing a pretty boy doctor for many years, went to England and studied, and then ended up he became like the movie of the week king. He did everything big, all the, you know, all the, like Shogun and all these huge movies at that time. I was pretty young too, but same thing with Farrah Fawcett. And a lot of actors do that they start out as just pretty faces. It's not enough. Or it's, you know, or even, you know, even if you're a person of color, it's not enough. You have, or a performer with a disability or anything else, you have to have the goods no matter what. That's always going to be the bottom line, is that you have to have the goods. So that means being smart about stuff, making sure that your material is up to date and it's the best of, having a good solid resume that isn't lying, but is really showing the parts that you feel the most proud of, and if you've worked with the director more than one time, things like that. It's really important to be able to break all that stuff down so that what you're doing is presenting the product in the best possible way. That's why I say target marketing. I get these random emails all the time from people. Hi, and I don't even cast that show anymore, you know, so I just pass it on to the people who are casting it now. So that's important too, to use IMDb Pro or use IMDb to see who is working on that show right now. And if you don't have representation, you can go online with the Academy and see who's the Television Academy, and see who's repping. I think it's, no, the Player's Guide, it used to be online. And you can see who's repping who, you know, what people have character actors, what people tend to focus on theater people. Get a sense of that so that when you do decide to look for that kind of thing, to look for representation, then you have a frame of reference, you know. Is that helpful at all? Is it what you wanted? What was the question that I mean, did it answer your question?
Yeah, just a sense of what can we do more in terms of positioning ourselves to be a smarter business mind. A lot of what you're saying is a lot of what I've presented and given to my team. So I feel like I'm on the right track in terms of all of that. So
right. Yeah, you have to stay,
nice.
It's about staying active.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
not,
I'm like such an active person. So
well,
yeah.
but active in your intention as well.
Yeah.
Not just about not just about what you're doing to do it, but in your intention of what you want in your life. You know, if you want to be creatively expressed, being an artist is not the easy route. But if that's all if you must creatively express, if that's the only way that you feel alive, then you have to do that. I had a friend, and pardon me because it's a little crude, but and he has unfortunately since passed away. But he was a director and a wonderful actor, and he would say to me, I said, I don't know, Steve, should I do this? Should I do this project? I don't know. I was always whining, and he just said to me, April, does it make your nipples hard? If it makes your nipples hard, then that's the one to go after. And that's what this career is about. Is this what turns you on when you think of creating a role? Is that what turns you on when you think about how am I going to get out there and audition more? Is that what excites you? Every aspect of it should be something where it turns you on in some way, because otherwise it becomes a burden, and you don't want your creative expression to be a burden, you know. So there you have it, my little crude thing. For me, and he told me this, I'm telling you, this has happened like, 25 years ago that he said this to me, or maybe more, because I've been living in this house for 8 years. It always stuck with me. And so when I'm choosing projects, even if I haven't had work, I always have to gauge it. What is it going to, how am I going to feel about it? Is it going to be something that I'm going to enjoy? Do I get something out of it? Not just what can I give, but what am I going to get out of it? Not in terms of, an agenda or, calculating, but will it give me, will it give me some joy? Will it give me some release? Will it give me some breath? Will it give me some, movement and life? So, and that has to do with knowing your business. You need to know your business. You need to have all of your materials ready to go and clean, and not when someone asks you for a demo reel, says, oh, I'm still working on it, but I'll be able to get it to you in a few days, and then scrambling like crazy. Have your tools ready, have your materials ready.
Cameron, you had your hand up earlier. You were next in the queue.
I had a quick question about something you mentioned. One of the first questions you answered, you talked about breaking down the text extensively and finding the world, the tone of the project you were working on. And my question is, when I approach an audition where perhaps the world that it is in is not something I'm very as familiar with, maybe if I watch the genre extensively, great. But if it's something I'm not as familiar with, what tools do you use to feel your way into what the tone or the world is? Is it simply looking at that writer or that director and things that they've done in the past, or is it more than that?
If it were me, one of the things that I do when I'm entering into a new area, although now I've done a lot of different genres, I watch movies, I look at books, I just, sort of immerse myself in a certain way into the feeling of it. Like, I haven't cast a bunch of Westerns, but I watched a lot of Westerns, but there's something else though, Cameron, which is very interesting. We're in a very new world right now. And gratefully, I don't know if it's new or it's finally just being recognized, but you're going to find that programming is going to change a lot in the next, when we start going back and everything else. We can't have the same kind of programming that we had before, which neglects people of color, which is racist, sexist, bigoted. It can be very subtle, but it's there. I watch a lot of shows that I loved now, and I watch them now, and I just go, oh my God, I liked this. It was so abusive. It was even Friends, which I still enjoy. I always said, I don't know where in New York they live, but I have never been in a New York coffee shop where there wasn't at least one person of color in the whole place. So you just kind of have to immerse yourself in the feeling of that. And yeah, I would take a look at what else the director has directed, but some directors don't always have the same style. Alan Parker who just passed away, had a different style with every movie he directed, every single one. But you can find out what his sensibility is. The most important thing is for you to do the best that you can do and find that. It's like when the feeling becomes, real, when the feeling comes through, that's what you're exploring. What does it feel like? You don't have to be a killer to play a killer. It's that old saw. You don't have to have been a serial murderer, but you can feel what happens when someone has been either so abused or is so dysfunctional that they have to express their power by making someone else small or killing them. So it's ways of taking a look at it in a slightly different way. It doesn't, obviously, there are space dramas and there's all kinds of genres that you can experience. You can just watch other kinds of things about it, but ultimately it's still going to get back to what you bring from you and how you play that serial killer, or how you play that, young professor, or how you play that, ambitious attorney, or whatever it happens to be. It may not be of your nature, but as an actor, what you have is this incredible toolbox. And we want to keep developing that toolbox and putting more tools in it, by our experiences and what we find out about ourselves as we do our exploration.
You mentioned space dramas. And we're doing this thing in class. It's called 3-2-1, 3 pages, 2 characters, 1 location, and it has to happen on Zoom. we pair actors up and we give them writing suggestions. Like here's a suggestion, and there's a list of 10 or 12 of them. Well, Cameron, who just asked this question, we had one a few weeks ago, or maybe more than a few weeks ago. And the suggestion was somebody in outer space talking to mission control. That would have to happen on Zoom with 2 screens, right? And I thought, no one's going to do that. It's so crazy. But you know, sometimes we have crazy things in there. Well, he did one with Abigail, who's not on the call tonight, on the Zoom tonight, and it was so great that they are developing it into whatever. I don't know, Kelsey, you can speak to that. But we've been creating, because we can't shoehorn what we used to do into the format. We're trying to be innovative within the format, and we're creating stuff, and it's great. The thing that Cameron and Abigail did that Kelsey is now involved with, helping them, was just so cool, and it would have never happened any other way, you know?
See, this is what's so exciting, you know, just about life in general. You know, I do a lot of writing, and I've written short stories and that sort of thing. But when I went to a workshop, a writer's workshop that was out in Edale, which is in the middle of Derbyshire, which is like all the way like Hobbit land in England, up near the Scottish border, about a little bit. Just listening to other people and being in the conversation, the ideas just kept coming. I would wake up in the morning and write 12 pages. You know, it's stimulating. That's why I say it's important to communicate with the people who are in your group. You want to keep in the conversation, because that's why a lot of corporations now, a lot of companies, they have chefs and things, because when people don't leave to go to lunch and they sit and they have lunch together, they talk about stuff, they talk about ideas, they help each other with their projects. And all of a sudden you have a movie, and all of a sudden you have a script, and all of a sudden, you know what I mean? It's really, you know, this is the blessing of having such a great community, where people are creative and they're talking about stuff and they're willing to play. I mean, you're going to find a lot of things, and it's so freeing because your brain just gets turned on, right? I mean, I'm assuming, Cameron, that's what happened when you were doing that scene. You went, oh, well, then we could do this, and then we could do that, and then we could do this, you know, and it's the same kind of thing. I think that we get to use that wonderful imagination that we were all born with, and create things. And that's why I say, you know, there's really no excuse to sit at home and not do anything, because everyone's on Zoom. I mean, Issa Rae got her show from doing a streaming thing on social media. Yeah. I mean, that's what people are doing. And people are watching those like crazy. There was this young guy, this young kid, I think he's like 14 or something like this, kept sending out, what's his name? Julian something, I'm blanking on his last name. Great kid, very funny. Kept putting in his tweets and Instagram, somebody tell the head of Disney about this, because I want to go work for them and do a movie. And so, but every time he would do it with another persona and a different costume and a different impression and everything else. And he did a ton of them. And guess what? He met the head of Disney, and got signed by an agent. You know, I mean, just doing this stuff. Because what he showed us, and this goes back to the question that Venk was asking about, because he just allowed his personality and who he was to be free and to be out there. You know, when we were kids, we used to say, "Let your freak flag fly," you know, and I mean, that's a really old expression, so don't judge me, but Michael knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, but it's like, how free can you be? You know, how open, and to not have the judgment, and to not, like, what would your life be like if you were able to turn around all those things that you thought were wrong, and to say, is that really true? Is that really who I am? No, that's not who I am. You know, it's just, there's just a wonderful way of looking at it. It can be so exciting. Have you discovered, has anyone discovered, first time hearing these two African-American guys on YouTube?
It's a perfect. It's,
Oh yes, those two boys listening to the music that they had
yes,
never heard before. Yeah.
it's like a sensation. I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but
Yeah, no, it's great because people are posting it all the time because it's
you know,
so
something,
delightful to watch.
but it's also so genuine and it's so real and it's so them. And I don't know what will happen with them, but who knows? It's like I want to see what's their next. What are they listening to now?
Well, I want to see the Pavarotti one because I hear that's really
Oh,
great.
that's incredible.
I haven't seen that one. But I mean, point being is that if if we can approach things in a childlike way, when you watch a baby, and if any of you have access to an infant to watch, like or a toddler to watch, just watch them how they deal with things. They fall and hurt themselves 2 seconds later, they're up and laughing and playing again. They don't stay in that moment. The moments go like this. Every breath, every second, everything, it's always changing. We live in a constantly changing world. And if we can know that that's just, that moment's gone, that moment's gone, that moment's gone, that moment's gone, then you don't hang on to stuff that drags you down. It's something that I have to practice all the time about letting go and surrendering to what is, to just what is, not what I thought it should be, not what, there's in the 12 step, they have an expression, it's none of my business what people think of me, and it's none of my business what I think people think of me. Because we're so worried about people judging us that a lot of times we shut down who we are. And you know what happens when you diminish yourself to meet those kind of people's expectations? You don't meet the people who see you for the big person that you are. You won't meet those people who excite you. You won't meet those people that you collaborate with because you've made yourself so small that no one can see you. So be big, be out there. Don't be afraid to write, to get, like I like to do morning pages. So like to get up in the morning and just write, write for 2.5 pages and don't even think about it. Don't judge punctuation, don't judge phrasing, don't judge any of that. Just to write, because whatever's in your head, you want it to be expressed in some way, and that's why classes are so great, because acting is one of the arts that you can't do by yourself. You can't. It's just, you have to be in interaction with someone, whether if it's not an audience, it's another person or it's the camera, So anyway.
Questions, more thoughts, questions. This is so great, April. Laura, sorry. Laura.
Hello. Hi, April. Good to
Hi.
see you. So I have a question. It's sort of in the same vein of what Raquel was talking about. If you've had an actor come in and you know them, you're familiar with their work, it was a good experience, do you, not with great frequency or to a level that's too much, but do you like to hear from them or exclusively from their reps if they're doing new things or they want to keep you posted about stuff? What's the protocol for you?
It depends on the kind of relationship I have with them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people I've known for a long time. Michael, I've known for a very long time. There's a lot of actors who are friends of mine. I mean, I have a lot of actor friends because I worked in the theater, and, who else do I see all the time? Those are my people. So, but if it's an actor who thinks, I'm not your, most of the time I'm not, I like you, I like bringing you in. I'm not necessarily your friend. Like when people want to friend me on Facebook or follow me on Twitter or whatever it happens to be, there is a different line there.
Yeah.
So if you're doing something that you want to make me aware of, I'd love to hear from you.
Right.
If it's just to check in, hi, just seeing what's going on, then there's really, it doesn't suit it. What's the word? It doesn't serve you, and it doesn't serve me because I've been on the phone all morning since 8 o'clock this morning, on the phone and on my computer, solid. I got up to go to the ladies' room and to feed the cat. That was like it, and fill up my water glass. So to get unwanted emails or unwanted texts. I had this actress call me up. I hardly know her. I was trying searching my brain. Have I met her before? Do I know her really well? She says, hi, April, it's Lucinda or whatever her name was. hey, you know, I just wrote this script. I was wondering if you'd take a look at it. Well, I said, I must know her. Well, why else would she text me on my personal line? Of course, everyone has my personal line, but why else would she ask me to do something like that? And I said, yeah, okay, I won't be able to get to it for a while, but I'll take a look. And then I said, I'm really busy right now because I'm working on something. She says, well, what are you working on? What are you looking for? I said, well, you know, that's really beside the point. And then she called me again later. She called me later and said, hey, you know, I was just wondering what you were looking for. I mean, what kind of character are you looking for? I said, you know what, this is really inappropriate. This is, you know, I'm not going to read your script. I would appreciate you don't call me. And because she crossed a line, you know, it's like, and then it turns out, I don't think I really know her. But you know, I need a new I need a new motherboard. I don't remember everyone I've met and had long conversations with because I love actors. So I'm going to have conversations with them in my room. That doesn't mean that we're besties.
Totally.
So you have to really keep it professional. Yeah. Unless I've invited you to, you know, my baby shower or something like that. It's or my birthday party or whatever it happens to be. Then it's not that kind of personal relationship. It's a professional relationship. And it's important to keep professional relationships in a professional vein. You know, so if you're doing something, yes, I want to hear from you. Hi, I'm going to be on NCIS tonight, or I'm going to be on Carnival Row tonight, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. Great. I may not be able to watch it, but what it says is that there's things going on. Hi, I did this pre-COVID and it's going to air tonight, or, you know, something like that. That's important. But to just sort of say, hey, hi, just wondering what's happening. It's like, yeah, nothing, bye.
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's a profession. And that goes to about, Rachel, is that how do you pronounce your name?
Rachel.
It is Rachel. Okay.
Sorry, it's Rachel. Yeah.
Oh, Rachel. So like Rachel, so, you know, as Rachel was saying, you know, you have to know the business part of it too. And that's the business part of it, where it's a profession. You come to auditions clean. You come in clothes that you feel comfortable in, but which can, you know, that will give us an indication of who the character is in some way. I mean, if you're playing a lawyer, to come in jeans and a t-shirt doesn't necessarily always work. It's helpful for you physically if you're wearing something that makes you stand in a certain way, but that's up to you. But your clothes should be clean. Your hair should be clean. You shouldn't smell. You know, no, you joke. We had a guy we called Mr. Smelly who came in once. We thought, well, he was just coming from work, so we would try him again. And he came in again, and we still had to air out the room. So, you know, these are simple things. If you're going for a business meeting, you want to look like a professional. I know it was bad, but anyway, I don't even remember his real name anymore. I just know him as Mr. Smelly. So what I'm saying, Laura, is that you want to approach it in a professional way, because what you're going to be doing in the room is something where you're going to be exposing yourself in a good way, because that's what an actor's gold is, right? Your gold is your vulnerability and what you bring to the role in that way, how willing you are to allow that to come through. So you need to have those parameters, you know, you need to have those sort of boundaries around you that sort of hold you up for both of us, you know, so that there are no boundaries crossed in terms of what we're doing. You know, if I start working with you in terms of getting you to breathe, or if you had something, the emotion just hit you very hard, I might come up to you and put, you know, say, is it all right if I put my hand on your back so that you can breathe, you know, because sometimes people get very, you know, the emotion might take you away, or the rage might take you away. And what I want to do is make sure you don't crash in your car on the way home. So I may touch you in that way, in a totally professional, like I'm doing an acting exercise way. But when you're working, you want to know that those parameters are there, and it just sort of sets up the space to make it a safe space for both of us, you know? Yeah,
completely. I had a casting director say to me recently, who I'd read for a few times. She kind of said something under her breath when I was leaving, because she saw a piece that I'd worked on, and she said, you know, let us know. You never let us know.
Right.
We only hear from your, and anyway, it was just, that's kind of what.
But that's the thing.
Yeah, I was like, I'm bad about that.
How are we gonna know? Well, you better get good at that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because that is part of the business, you know. I mean, if you are the product, then you want to, you know, right, when it's appropriate and it's something that they can actually either see or know that you're working. It's different than just sort of checking in and say, hey, how you doing? I just want to make sure you were safe and happy. It's like, thank you, you too. You know? But if you're going to be appearing in something, or that you've written, and something that you're performing, that you're going to have on YouTube, a friend of mine who's a director and an actor, you know Stu Zully, don't you, Michael? Do you know?
Yes, I do. Sure.
Yeah. So Stuart wrote a book. He worked at Yankee Stadium for like 40 years or something like that, since he was like a kid, you know, a little kid. His father also had worked there, had been a vendor, and he wrote this book about his life with the Yankees. And what he's done is that he's been reading an inning every other Saturday.
Ah.
And we tune in and watch it, and he sends it to all of us, and we post it so that other people can know about it too, because it's so fascinating to see what was happening behind the scenes. And it also touches on, you know, when vendors deal with human beings and crazy people a lot of the time, you just see humanity in another way. It makes you empathetic, and it also makes you laugh sometimes too. So there's all kinds of things that we can do to promote ourselves. And the best way to do it is, if you're an artist, is through your art. And to let people know about it, because if you're just doing it at home and just say, Mom, will you watch this?
Don't be the best kept secret in town.
Exactly.
Dana, you had your hand up earlier. It's your turn, kiddo.
Hey, April.
Hi.
Just wanted to thank you again for coming in. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I have kind of a two-part question. Number one, you've kind of touched a little bit about, you know, being in the space and actors getting emotional, or, you know, needing a second. I kind of wonder your opinion on either actors taking a moment, or asking if they can try again. I've heard kind of different opinions on that.
You know, it depends on how many people were in the waiting room a lot of the time, and whether or not you can do it again. But here's the thing, is you can ask. That doesn't always mean you'll get a yes, but if you just feel like, you know, I would love, can I just have can I have another chance to work on that? I got a little lost, or whatever it happens to be. Then if I have the time and I have the capability, then I might give you a chance to do it again. Unless, you know, sometimes people come in and you know energetically that they're not right for the role. But I'll still have you do the audition. I want to see if you can show me something else. Getting emotional, taking a moment, that's your right, that's your space. When you go in there, that audition space is your space. What you do with it is up to you. You can get so emotional that you're talking yourself out of the job, because you're just going on, and people sort of go, oh, high maintenance, you know, and then this happened and that happened. I just need another time to try it. You know, it's like, but if you're just saying, okay, I just need to take a moment, then that's understandable. You're prepping, you know. I mean, a lot of times you come in and people want to chat and do the slate. You can make a request. Would it be all right? I'm prepped for the role. I'm prepped for the audition right now. Would it be all right if we slated at the end? That's all. You just tell the assistant that you don't want to slate right away, that you want to just go right into the scene. No one will say no. No one will say no. We're not trying to we're not hoping that you fool us into hiring you. We want to give you the best opportunity that we can. So if it's in our means to do that, we will. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there are other nasty casting directors, but most of the casting directors I know and that have been my colleagues for many years are, you know, we're all on the side of the actor. We don't want to see 200 people for a role. We want to discover new talent. We want to see what you're going to do with it. You know, I do auditions, and I can have one role that's read 200 times, 250 times, same role, same material, over and over again, until you know it by heart, you know, until I know it by heart and can read without a script. I can read it with you without a script. But the one person who brings just the tiniest other nuance to it, not because they're doing it because they're trying to be different, but just because of who they are, all of a sudden, you hear the material like you never heard it before. It's like, oh my God, I never heard that phrase before. Has that always been in there? And you look to see, and yes, it has, because the kind of work that you do, and you know, your heart, your feelings, as I said before, are your gold. Good actors are able to access those things. That's what you want. You want to have that accessibility. It doesn't mean necessarily going out of control all the time in an audition, but at the same time, if something overtakes you, then that's beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. When I've seen people, you know, who have sort of just, you know, the emotion has taken them, they have to take a moment afterwards to just sort of breathe and like, you know, and I just say, look, take some water before you go into your car, take some water before you stop, take a moment, you know, just take a moment for yourself and to breathe. Breath, by the way, is very underrated. It's probably one of the most important things you can do. When you're auditioning and when you're acting, if you watch singers, you know, I've been watching Seth Rudetsky's, he analyzes all these different famous songs. You know who Seth Rudetsky is? He's like he's like the Broadway guy. And he's a composer and he's a musician and is very involved with the musical theater thing. And what he does is that he breaks down all these different songs and you can see how long the actors had to hold a breath. And if they did it on one breath, things that we don't even notice. So when did he take that breath? You know, and it's like how you begin to use your instrument totally and integrated. And your breath has a lot to do with that, because if you're not breathing, you're not getting brain function going on, your heart's not pumping right. So to just take that moment to like let the energy go through your whole body, to take a breath, and to allow that breath to carry you. You know, that's how they teach singers, is that the sound comes out on the breath. Well, it's the same thing with your expression. It's going to come out on the breath. And if you stop breathing, then all the emotions are tapped down, all the feelings are tapped down, all of the creativity and it just becomes this sort of very technical performance that doesn't have any life to it. So
you mentioned when you have a role that you've read 250 times. And sometimes when I get, like because as you probably know, time frames are getting shorter. Like people are getting 12 pages, 8 pages, 10 pages, and they have a 24-hour turnaround. And when I coach somebody, I will say, look, everybody's in the same boat. They've all got the same 10 pages. Mm. They're all going to probably, because they don't have enough time to really get deep with it, they're probably going to kind of do it in a similar fashion. And your job is to find that one thing that only you can bring to it. Mm-hmm. That one moment that only you have. And where is that? And it doesn't matter if it's a weird moment. It doesn't matter if you take a pause where no one else takes it. You need to find your original way in. You need to bring your life into it. And it sounds simple, but we get into a performative mode. Yeah. And that's when we lose it. We all do. I do too. We get into a performative mode and we just sort of forget about the life of it because we see it as a little test we have to pass.
Well, so it's a presentation. It becomes a presentation. You know, I'll give you a perfect example of this. Okay, I was casting a show called Fringe, and we were looking for the man who played the professor, the doctor. John Noble ended up playing it, and we had like some of the top. We had Anthony Serby. We had everybody, all like the great older guys, because this guy was supposed to be in his late 60s, early 70s, and this one actor, John Noble, there was a line that said, "What day is today?" She said, "It's Thursday." He goes, "Oh, butterscotch pudding. I hate it." You know, and like everyone was reading it like, "Oh my God, it's Thursday, it's butterscotch pudding." And John went, "Butterscotch pudding." And he just had this little laugh. It was like crazy. That was the tell for me. Yeah. That it was that tiniest little thing, because he just saw it in a completely different way. And I was looking for someone who had a different vision of the world. And the way that he said that it was funny as opposed to punitive, I just went, and by the way, it didn't end up like that when we shot it. He didn't end up with that little laugh, but just the fact that he did it in the audition, I went, this is the guy, this is it, see how he did that? They think I'm crazy, but you know, it's like, that's how we can tell that there's something else that's there. Not just the rote of what you think it's supposed to be. Right. Dana, did that answer your question, by the way?
Yeah, no, I've just heard mixed, you know, and I guess maybe you're right. There's different people who have different opinions, but sometimes I do feel like I need just a second. And
all you can do is ask for it. Ask for it.
Yeah.
That's actors' rights. That's your space. The thing is that you have to read the room.
Totally.
And know if there's room for that. And if you know, if you find that there isn't, then you're going to have to do your prep outside. You're going to have to be ready to come in and take your moment before you come in the door and request that you just go into the scene. And you can do that too. But it's important to know what your rights are as far as that goes.
I had a guy, this is a number of years ago, it was a pilot audition.
Uh-huh.
And I was nervous and all that stuff, but I was very, very prepped. An actor who I will not name literally went crazy before me, like started screaming at, it was not, I mean, not in the scene. He stormed out. He like had a fit and went crazy. And then they come out and say, okay, Michael, we're ready for you. And I said,
okay.
I said, you know what? Let's take 5. I want everybody, I want to give myself, I don't want to walk into that room right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but you asked, right?
Oh, absolutely. I said, I just said, I don't think, I said, let's just, and they said, yeah, good idea. Good idea. I said, okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, you're not, you know, it's like, we all do this together. It's a collaboration and everybody is an important part in that. So you don't have to feel like, hi, I'm here, I'm gonna, you know, it's like, oh, thank you for letting me come in and do my thing. And, you know, and like, then you become invisible. You know, you make yourself invisible. But if you come in and you come into the room, you can, here's the important thing to know, that you can affect a room as opposed to being at the effect of the room. You know, people, you might come in and everybody is like, oh shit, they cut $3 million. What are we gonna do? But if you come in and you're clear and you're ready to go to work and you're ready, there's like, hi, is everybody ready? Okay, I'm ready, let's go. And you do it, it's like all of a sudden our attention is drawn in a different kind of way. You know, you can't be a victim in general, but you certainly can't be a victim of the audition, because you can, if you don't ask for your rights, then you won't get them. And you'll go into a room where everyone is agitated and someone just had a huge argument and, you know, it's like, hi, Michael, we're ready for you. You know, and if you don't say, you know, would you mind if we just took a moment so everyone can sort of get over this horrible thing that just happened, then you're going to go into the lion's pit and wonder why, you know, you felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So, you know, you have to know that what you have to offer is really important and essential. We can't do it without the actors. The trick is finding the right person for the role, and that is out of everyone's control. You know, it's certainly out of yours. And if it's not your role, then it's not your role. If it is, it is. And, you know, it's hard to remember that because sometimes our desires overtake our instincts, you know, in that way. So listen, there's plenty of time. I'm not saying you're never going to be disappointed. I'm not saying you're never going to feel personally you know, personally hurt by what has gone on. But if you can recover from that a little faster each time and know that it's, you know, there's so many circumstances that have nothing to do with just your talent. It could be how tall the leading woman is, or it could be how that the producer had a redheaded sister he hated and you're a ginger. You know, I mean, there's so many different extenuating circumstances that have nothing to do with your ability to act the role. A lot of times I see I just in the show that I was working on now, I saw great actors, but will they fit with this actress as a love interest? Not all the time. Even actors I've loved, that I've always loved, aren't able to necessarily hit the tone need for this particular thing, because I have to be able to feel it. I know that sounds weird, but that's one of my, you know, that's one of my things that are stock and trade, is my instincts, and being able to get a feeling of who that person is and what they can bring to it and how it's going to blend with the rest of the cast. I mean, I've been very lucky in my ensembles because they all get along so well. When we did Bates Motel, having Vera Farmiga as our #1 was heaven, because Vera has the hugest heart, very professional, always prepared. Freddie Highmore had never done a series like that before. Now, of course, he's producing and directing and writing and everything, which he started doing, by the way, right away. But it just affected the whole cast because it puts them at ease. It lets them know that the working place is a safe place to be. And all of a sudden you have a real ensemble. That's another reason, by the way, Michael, that I love theater training, that it trains you how to be an ensemble.
Yeah.
It's not just you doing the guest star part. You know, I mean, you know how to work with other people. And I remember when I was working at Carsey Warner in the olden days, when they were giving comics series of their own. And a lot of stand-up people don't know what it means to work with someone else. And so they would put them in these ensembles and they would have no idea how to be generous with the other actors. And then you have something like, you know, what was the John Lithgow one? Seventh Planet, you know, the one with all the
something from the
Third
sun.
Rock from the Sun.
Right. Third Rock from the Sun. Every single one of those people were actors who had been in ensembles. Jane Curtin, John Lithgow, and even the young kids who were playing, you know, what's his name, Gordon Levitt. They were used to working in ensembles. They had been doing it, I mean, since they were kids, or in the theater or in improv groups. And if you don't know how to do that, then it becomes stilted, and it becomes, you know, it's like when you go in an improv class and you don't know that it's and as opposed to but, you know, it's like and by the way, I would suggest, if anyone hasn't done improvisation, although now is probably not a really great time to do that, but it's something that really frees you up a lot because you can't think about it. You just have to go with the gut. And if you're doing that in class, then that's the most brilliant thing to do. Because that's what acting is, you know. I mean, it isn't about figuring out what you're doing with the whole performance before you get on the stage. You want to have an idea of what you're saying and what it means, but what's going to happen in the moment. That's why directors take more than one take sometimes, because sometimes in the second take, you hit the tone that you may not have hit in the first one. I cast a movie called The Patriot with Mel Gibson. Now Gibson was also a director, right? And I was watching this one speech he was giving, and I was watching all the dailies, and they did about 6 takes, and I could tell, he just said one more, and you could just tell which one was the right one. Just by watching him, you could see how he was honing it each time that he did it. Now, there's a lot of directors, it's like one take, gone. That's what Tyler Perry does. One take, and the only way that they will do a second take is if you've been swearing or something. So a lot of people go, oh, fuck, you know, and then you have to take another take. But I'm not saying that you should take that luxury all the time. I think that you do your homework before you come in. You come in prepared, you come in knowing the script as well as you can, even if you're holding the script in your hand, because it frees you up and it keeps us from noticing how much you look down all the time. That would be something I would suggest, is to learn the material as best you can, even when it's 12 pages. And that becomes a facility as well. That becomes something that you become good at as well. Sight reading becomes something you get really good at as well. I mean, I can sit here and read a script with you and read a scene with you and almost be looking at you the whole time, even with material that I have never seen before, just from years of doing it, you know, just from years of doing it. So, yeah.
I don't want to abuse your time, my dear.
No, I was late, so.
No, it's all right. It's all right, but I want to just.
I think Jennifer hadn't spoken before, and so then if we can.
Jennifer.
Jennifer and Yvette, and then we'll be done, I guess.
Hi, April.
Hi.
So I have a technical question, actually, since we haven't really been able to practice these producer sessions that are happening on Zoom. I'm curious how they're doing chemistry reads and how, and because one of the things that shocked me when I came to LA were how many dogs are in casting rooms. So that threw me. So I'm wondering if there's anything new that you could give us a heads up on the Zoom that we may not know.
We're just discovering a lot too. I mean, I'm about to do this, and I have to do these chemistry reads. There is a way. I work with, are you familiar with a theater company called Antaeus?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on the board of Antaeus, and I also sometimes teach for them and stuff. And I'm in their playwrights group. Just as I'm not writing, I'm just there, you know, to perform and to give feedback and that sort of thing. So we started doing all of them on Zoom. so we were reading plays, new plays on camera. So there's a way actually on Zoom of having two people side by side so that you almost have I mean, the trouble is that you're not going to be looking into someone's eyes and you don't want to see yourself, you know, so we're going to have to see how that works out. We've done auditions that way, but we haven't done chemistry reads. So I'm actually putting it out there to my other colleagues to find out how people have done chemistry reads. I have no idea how it's going to work. But I think, you know, it goes back to what we were talking about before, how the person connects, how they relate to one another. And we can have them sort of facing one another in a way, you know, like if I like, here I am, I'm talking to Michael here. Hi, Michael. You know, how you doing? It's good to see you. Hi. Yes, yes. Oh, I do want to go out to dinner next week. Thank you. You know, whatever. I don't know how that's going to work because I'm not looking at him, you know. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I don't have an answer for you on that one, Jennifer. We'll have to, you know, sidebar that until I get some information.
Darn it. I'll let you know if I figure it out because I'm casting a little short film and I need to chemistry read my actors. And
well, you know, I've seen when I've watched the playwrights group, I have seen people begin to interact as if they're next to one another. And I think it's just a matter of getting used to that format, that it's ultimately still you know, people talking to one another. And even though you can't necessarily look right into their eyes, if you want both people on camera at the same time, that's the tricky bit. But if you're focusing on the other person, what we've done is that, like I've read with people, but I could have the actress off camera and have the actor on camera, and then just have them pin each other so that they can see each other. And and then everyone else is on, their video is down and they're muted. And so then when they do their scene, they're actually looking at one another, and you can see what it's like that way. And then you'll have to do things where they're together you know, where their physical proximity is imagined in some way. But I think that would be the best way. I think that would be the best way to be able to have them actually read with one another and see what kind of rhythm they have, what kind of thing they have like that, you know? So
thank you.
Sure.
We've been doing a play reading once a week.
Oh, great.
Which is very ambitious. And they've gotten so much better at it, to the point where somebody's got a glass, they pass it over here, the person in the next frame picks it up.
I've seen that.
It's been fun. And I know
so much fun.
Chris Frost, AKA Cynthia Lermont, participated in the Road Theater's new play. It's a new play festival. Yes.
It's a new play festival. Yeah, I usually direct in that every year. I wasn't able to do that this year, but they have great stuff. Yeah, they've been doing that. Sometimes what they'll do is that they'll create a background, so it looks like you're in the same room. I saw one where someone had done a photo of a couch, and they did the part of it. They did the whole couch, and then they split it so the person who was sitting in front of the couch in one square, and they were sitting in front of the couch in the other square, so it looked like they were sitting near one another. But no, I saw a play that Sam Anderson did with Taylor Gilbert, and it felt like they were in the same room. You know, she passes him his dry cleaning, he takes his suit and he takes the suit off the hanger and puts it on. You know, so there are ways to get around it. But in a chemistry read, it's a little bit different. You're not dealing with props and stuff. But that's such great practice. You know, if we weren't on all Zoom, that's what I would be recommending to people, to invite people over and read a play, because it gets you sharp on getting the words out of your mouth. It gets you sharp on the flow going. I think it's a great activity. So that's a terrific thing to do.
So
okay, guys, I have to eat before it's too late. So I will.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. And if there's other questions, you know, send them to Michael, and then he can forward them to me. And if I can, you know, give you an answer and you didn't get what you needed tonight, then maybe I can, you know, give you a better or another answer. So.
You're the best. It was so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Gareth, we've met before, haven't we?